Welcome back, everybody, to Blake's Pie Show Academy. Today, we're going to be looking at some more Scud Pie Show, specifically from Season 1 of the Garden Gate League, and we're going to be looking at my game against Kokoro that I was not able to play live, which is okay, but I will be covering it here just as a quick recap because I am covering all my other games. So let's begin. This should be a pretty quick video. I'm not going to be going super in depth or going into my thought process very deeply like I usually do when I am commentating on my live games. So let's just begin. It's good. I'm host, Kokoro is guest. So I was not able to do my normal opening. Well, not my normal opening, but I was not able to do the opening I've been trying out in the Garden Gate League in this game, which is okay. We start with the red 4s, and they take the east gate with a red 3, starting off with some gate control, which is strong. And I move out my red 4 and they get more gate control, which makes sense. I plant a red 5 because it's the only good move. They move out their red 3 and I take the gate because I need some gates. Gate control is very important. They move out their red 5 and decide to plant an orchid, which is interesting. You know, with me, usually I would plant a lotus first, but you know, not always. I'd say it's probably 60% of the time I plant lotus first, just because I can use it to harmonize and plant an orchid off of that harmony. But yeah, like I said, probably around 40% of the time I find myself in a position where I decide to plant the orchid first. So in this position, Kokoro decides that they should plant the orchid, which I don't think is necessarily bad. I just don't see the need for it in that gate per se. I would probably just focus on forming harmonies, especially because that red 4 down in the south gate is not going to be able to form a harmony with that red 3 until after a couple moves of setup, which is not great. I would have rather had them plant a lotus or move out their red 4 in preparation to harmonize with their red 3 so that they can also move out their red 5 while planting another basic flower. But that's just what my thoughts are right now off the top of my head. But anyway, I move out my red 5 and plant a lotus. They now move their red 3 because they want to be able to harmonize with their red 4, I'm assuming. I move out my lotus and plant my orchid, so now that it is going to be wild when I move it out, and I'm threatening Kokoro's red 3. They move out their orchid in hopes to protect their red 3, but this move, I believe, is a little bit of a mistake for a couple of reasons. Well, this move isn't necessarily bad. It becomes kind of a bad move because of how they play from this point on with some of their moves, which I'll go over in a minute, of course. But I don't think this move is necessarily wrong or bad, but you have to play around it, and that'll make more sense when I explain the future moves. You just have to be aware of where you're putting it and what your plans are with your future tiles. So by itself, it's not a terrible move. The idea is to protect your red 3, of course, which I think makes sense. Even here, though, I wouldn't mind putting it like here to set up kind of a discovered harmony thing so that on a future turn, you can move it to maybe freeze a tile like my red 4, which might become something, you know, a win condition of some kind, or to freeze my orchid or whatever. And then after doing that, you can use the harmony bonus to plant a lotus. Just something to think about. I don't think it's necessarily better than this move, but I think you can also make it work. So I plant a red 3 over here, taking the gate. So now I have 3 gates, and I'm starting to form some kinds of threats like this. Kokoro moves out their red 4, uses the harmony bonus to plant a red 3. And this is what I kind of mean here. Like, there's nothing wrong with putting the orchid here, depending on what you're planning to do. Like, if you're planning to play around that, then that's fine. That's not really a wrong move. But in this case, if this is the win condition that Kokoro is going for, putting the orchid here ended up hurting them in the future because they want to put their red 3 here, obviously, and you'll see the problems that caused them in a minute. I move my red 4 over here to prepare for win threats like this. I didn't want to give up any gates. That's why I just moved to flower without making a harmony. I valued all of these gates pretty highly, except for this one maybe, but moving out the red 5 doesn't really do anything. The big moves I'm looking at are moving out an orchid and a red 3, but I'm not quite ready to do those. I want to move out my red 3 while making a win threat so that it pressures my opponent a little bit and doesn't just give them a free gate, is the idea behind this move. So now we'll see what I was talking about. They move their red 3 here, which is a little bit unfortunate with their orchid here. And yeah, this is quite a few moves in the future, so it's not the easiest thing to see, but I think it just goes to show it's important to know what your threats are going to be, what you're going for, what harmony rings you're going for. Because if you're aware that this is the kind of threat you're going for, because you know you're going to put your red 4 here because it's the only spot that can harmonize with this red 3, and then you're going to plant a red 3 maybe instead of a red 5 because you want to harmonize with this white 5, of course. So you have to put the red 3 here or here. Now, another thing you could do to play around the orchid, like maybe they really wanted their red 3 here and their plan was to get it there. In that case, putting the orchid here is probably a bad move. But I don't think they have to put it here. I think they could put it here. I see why they wanted to put it. Yeah, because they want to put it here so that it can reach their white 5 this way. But this move is not the best because they put their orchid here. They don't have this anymore. So yeah, it is a little bit hard to see, and I don't blame them at all for this. It's kind of a pretty minute mistake. But it just goes to show, like, you have to know what you're going for, really, and you have to know what your ideas are, because this kind of becomes a little bit of a big deal, because in this instance I am now able to block this wind threat without using an accent tile, which is pretty nice for me, especially considering Kokoro has already used their accent tile and would love to force me to use an accent tile. So this is pretty much just a nitpick. If anything, this isn't like really big criticism, because like I said, this is, you know, not something that you can really foresee 100% of the time. But just from my experience, when I'm playing Scud, I always have an idea of what my threats are going to be. I know what rings I'm going for, and I know when those rings become unfeasible, and I know when it was going to put pressure on my opponent to go for these threats. And, you know, in doing that, I try and think of the correct positioning on where to put my tiles. So that might be something that you think about before putting the orchid here. But in the end, at the end of the day, it's really not a big deal. Just something minute that I thought I would comment on, because I thought it was kind of interesting how this move, like here, which is seemingly non-impactful, turns out to be somewhat impactful in the future due to the win condition that you're going for. So just something small to comment on that I thought was kind of interesting. But like I said, now I'm able to block this win threat without spending an accent tile, because if this orchid was not here, then this would be a win threat. And in this position, I believe I would have to use an accent tile to defend this harmony ring. I'm pretty certain of that. Because of the orchid being here, I get to save an accent tile, which is nice. So Guest does this, which is not really the right idea. I think I understand the idea. They want to trap my red 3 here, which is a good idea, I think. I think in this position, it probably is more valuable to take this gate, because this gate is very valuable to me. Because yes, you do trap my red 3 here, because if I move it, I give you a win, of course. There's also like a potential for a draw here. I'll just point out really quick. I could go here, boat this, but then it's a draw. I don't want to draw in this position. I believe I'm in the better position. So yeah, they're trapping my red 3 here. But the fact is that doesn't really matter too much when I can just plant another flower right here. This flower, this red 3, is one move out of a gate. It's not really a big loss if I lose it. Yeah, it is my win condition right now, but I have other options to go for. I have 2 gates right now that I'm free to take, and I already have 2 gates. So I do understand the idea of putting the red 3 here, but it has a few problems. It gives me gates. The main thing really, I think, is even though you're kind of putting some pressure on me, because this looks kind of scary, like if I ever move that red 3, then you win, of course. But I don't have to move that red 3 at all, and there's no way now that you have to really threaten to move that red 3, because now as Guest you have no easy way to make any harmonies. So I think the real lack of an actual threat is the main problem with this move. I believe just moving it here would be better, or moving the white 5 here would be better, because that actually threatens something. This looks like it maybe threatens something, but I really don't think it does threaten anything, to be completely honest. So on my turn, I actually decided to take the red 3, which is interesting. I thought I took the gate, but I was wrong. I think taking the gate could have been a good move for me, but taking the red 3 also makes sense. I've explained before, I really like these plays where I can sacrifice my orchid. So this was an orchid sacrifice. Of course, they can capture back with their orchid, but now this harmony ring threat is completely gone. And I suppose actually taking the red 3 was a better move than planting in a gate. I didn't really look at it, but I think this was the best move I could have made, because with this red 3 gone, their harmony ring threats are completely gone. And, you know, it's a free tile for me. They can't capture back or else I win, because now that I don't have to worry about moving this red 3, I can move it freely. Then I have a win with boating this knotweed, like I was talking about before. So yeah, see, that's what happens when you let off the pressure on your opponent. If you stop applying consistent pressure, then they're able to counterattack. So If you have to give up pressure, you want to do it in a way where your opponent can't make a good counterattack like this. And ideally, you never want to let up the pressure, but at some point, you're going to have to let up the pressure. So, yeah, I believe this was the correct move for me. They cannot capture back, of course. They decide to freeze the rows, which I don't think is a bad move because they're completely shutting down my rows for any ideas over here. They're also blocking the red 4, which is a nice bonus. So now I have a lot of time to gather myself pretty much because I don't have to worry about Kokoro getting any sort of win threats anytime soon. So I move out my red 5, which is kind of an interesting move, actually. I kind of like this move. I wanted to get this flower out of here because having this gate was not super valuable to me, and I wanted to plant a basic flower tile. And I actually like this move a lot because I was able to move this out into here, which I was able to plant a white 3 down here, and I was able to put a red 5 here so that I have this idea. And this is something that I've been trying to experiment with my openings a bit recently, I think. I like being able to switch around my win conditions pretty freely and still have threats. So, like, you know, this was my win condition, and then one turn later, I move out this red 5, and now this is my win condition, you know? So I think that's pretty nice, and it allows me to keep up pressure pretty well, which is really what I'm going for. So yeah, now the idea is this, and Kokoro here plants a red 3 over here, which I don't think is the correct move. Like, I understand what they're going for, kind of, but it doesn't work. They maybe want to attack the orchid and try to harmonize with the white 5, but there are a few problems with that. I mean, obviously, first, they can't harmonize with the white 5. They can't harmonize with this lotus. If they move out the red 3, like I said, they can't harmonize, so they can't plant in this gate with the bonus. So I can just capture the red 3 if I really wanted to. So this move just doesn't really do too much, unfortunately. I move out my white 5 and... I move out my white 3 and plant a red 5 with, you know, this threat, wheel this. So they block this by using an accent tile, and it does work as a block. But I will say, when you can block something with an accent tile, before you do, always just check to see if you can block it without an accent tile. In this case, Kokoro could have by just moving their white 5 here. And I think that would have been a pretty good move because now they have this option. And of course, the main big thing with this move is that you block my win condition and you don't have to use an accent tile this way. So I believe that probably would have been the correct move. You maybe could have even used the orchid in a similar way, and I think it would have worked because this idea is not going to happen with that move still, and especially not with my red 5 here. So maybe the orchid or the white 5. I like the white 5 because it opens up some openings. You could even do this, put it up here so that now you have an opening for your red 3. I believe that would probably be even better. But they block it this way with a rock tile, which in this case, sometimes I say, like, if an accent tile completely shuts down your opponent's position, then it can be worth it to use it even if you don't have to. In this case, the rock tile only temporarily slows me down, I believe. So I move here, plant a white 4, and, you know, the main idea with this move is I now have another win condition. Like I said, just keep up the pressure. Keep up the pressure, keep moving tiles out, keep making harmonies, keep up the pressure. That's what you do in Scud, in my opinion. You know, some small things like this, I'm threatening to take this red 4. It's not really something I'm planning to do. The main reason I chose a white 4, well, I chose it for the bonus of being able to capture this red 4 if I ever need to, but also it can harmonize with my white 3, which is the most important part of planting this tile, in my opinion. I could have planted a red 4 and had a similar effect, but I just figured the white 4 was better. I don't have a lot of white flowers out yet, only white 3s, so I'd like to get some more white flowers that can move some actual distance, and this one can harmonize with my white 3. And as a bonus, I can capture this, so I figured it was the right decision. I wasn't really sure which flower to plant here. I knew I wanted to plant something, so I believe this was the correct decision. But there's a lot of different options you could have gone with, I think, in this position. But anyway, I do have a win condition, so they block it by moving the orchid here, which makes sense. The nice thing about using the rock tile, though, that I didn't mention is it does completely shut down this idea as well. So this idea is pretty much gone for now, and you also block this. So it does serve multiple functions, which is nice. But in response, I moved my orchid, and here originally I made a mistake that I undid quickly because I caught it early on. I at first originally had moved my orchid to one of these spots, I don't remember. The problem with this move is that if I move my orchid over here, then Kokoro can freeze it while continuing to block one of these harmonies for my win condition, which would be very bad for me. I don't want my Orchid frozen. But I want to be able to threaten my opponent's Orchid like this, because one, just the Orchid is a very valuable piece to capture. If I can capture, I would really like to. And two, of course, Kokoro cannot capture my Orchid because I then have a win. Like I said, I like being able to sacrifice the Orchid like this. It's not really a sacrifice because Kokoro is not going to take it, but I am able to apply pretty good pressure with it because I'm able to threaten this Orchid like this. And there's not really any good way for Kokoro to sacrifice the Orchid in this position. I believe they must. There is no good way really for Kokoro to protect or save the Orchid. So I believe in this position, Kokoro is forced to pretty much sacrifice the Orchid to have any chance really. Of course, they don't have to. They decided instead to use an accent tile, which, yeah, there's some more argument for that. If sometimes an Orchid can be worth more than an accent tile, and I do believe it can be worth using an accent tile to save an Orchid at times. In this case, I don't think it is the right move because it doesn't really fully save your Orchid, because as you see here, I have this move, and now, you know, it's a pretty nice move that might be a little hard to see. Like this move, it does save the Orchid because I can no longer reach it, but this move is very nice. It reopens up this win threat here, you know, by moving the red 5 here, and I get this. So a completely unblocked win threat that doesn't even involve this Orchid anymore, but also I'm threatening to capture the Orchid. So this is kind of a rough move for Kokoro. At this point, your position is very bad. Something nice though that I didn't notice before, that I just now noticed. An advantage with moving the white 5 here and using the accent. Yes, I don't think this was the best move because you use an accent tile when I don't think it was necessary. But a nice advantage of moving your white 5 here is you get this, which at the time their white 5 was still blocked by my Orchid. So this was an advantage, even though I did move my Orchid eventually and they would have this. They have no way of knowing that really. They could predict it, of course, but this is a nice advantage of moving the white 5 here, even if it puts your rows in a pretty bad spot. You know, when you're in a bad position, you have to make use with what you're given. And, you know, yeah, if you're in a bad position, you have to do the best that you can with that position. So, you know, even though this is still a not great position, I think it is a good find in a bad position, even if there are other problems. But anyway, that is pretty much the game, because as here, they missed this win, unfortunately. They do capture my Orchid, and I do win. So yeah, towards the end there, their position was very bad. It was very difficult for them to find any good moves that really saved them. They were going to have to give up their Orchid to survive any longer, really, which is very rough for Guest here. So I think it's, you know, it's kind of just a snowball of mistakes, really. There's just a few small things that maybe could have been done a little bit better. Like I said, saving the accent tiles. This was kind of an unfortunate setup for them. This move, especially here, just gave me too much freedom, I think. I think they would have been in a much better spot if they continued up the pressure with something like this, you know. Then they would be able to dictate the game a little bit and push me to do something. Instead, this move gave me pretty much complete freedom. Yes, they trapped my red 3, so I don't have any moves with that right now. But other than that, I have complete freedom. And just editing thing here. I just realized through editing this move makes sense. I completely missed that I have a win threat here. Yeah, no, they couldn't form any threats like I was talking about because I have a win, of course. I don't know how I missed that. But yeah, they had to stop me from my win at some point, which actually is just a bigger detriment to their Orchid move, pretty much. This move is not as bad anymore because for some reason I thought they had the option to continue making pressure when really I have all the pressure in this position. So really, the Orchid move was kind of the downfall here because it allowed me to block their win threat while also forming my own win threat, and I didn't even have to use any accent tiles. So they enabled me to have a pretty good move there. So yeah, I apologize for missing that. I was going through this a little bit too quick. I don't know if you could tell, but I was kind of rushing with my speech even. So I'm sorry. I apologize for that. I will be doing better with that in the future. Recaps, I guess. I don't know. This was kind of just a weird video to record because I wasn't really trying to do a review. I was just kind of trying to recap my game from the league. Anyway, I'll do better next time regardless. But
yeah, basically in this position, I have a wind threat, so obviously they can't be forming any threats like I was talking about. And yeah, this move makes sense. They're probably, yeah, I guess it works. I'm trying to think. In this position, you probably have to just use, no, in this position, the move is probably to use your orchid looking on it right now in editing. I think you have to move your orchid because that actually works pretty nice, because if you move it away, you give yourself a win threat with your white 5 and your red 3, which is not super easy for me to block. I think I'd have to use an accent tile, which is actually kind of a mistake I made in this game. I think I got a little bit too hasty, which is something I do a little bit. I get a little bit carried away when I'm a little bit too confident going into a game. I kind of disrespect people's threats, and then I get myself into a position where I have to use an accent tile. So I believe here, if they move the orchid tile, what I'm looking at right now, which is a very small screen in my editing studio, I would have to use an accent tile after that move, I believe. Obviously, they would move the orchid up to block like my red 4 and red 5 harmony, then I wouldn't have a win. They would have a win threat, and I don't see how I could block that without using accent. Oh, actually, no, I could use my... Oh, that's tricky. I could use my orchid to take their rose. Yeah, that's pretty rough, actually. It's just kind of funny, like, you know, like I was saying, I really can't blame them for the orchid move. It makes sense to just move it out like that. But, like, it's interesting in this game how much that just hurts their position here. And... you know, it kind of just let me get away with being a little bit carefree, because usually I should have been punished for how I was playing. I would have had to use a accent tile, but because of their orchid position there, I kind of got away with it for free, which was interesting. So yeah, kind of just really unfortunate for them. That's the kind of mistake that you're always going to be watching out for in your future games. Like when you're doing similar setups, like you're going to make sure you don't do that ever again. Speaking from personal experience, that's something that you're going to watch out for, because that is just really unfortunate that on the first time seeing it, you're not going to be able to really foresee that very much, like 90% of the time. So that's just kind of interesting. So like, I don't know how they would block it. I don't want to just leave this unresolved, so I'm trying to figure it out right now while I'm editing this video, but I don't think you could move the orchid. Well, okay, so the problem is, yeah, I guess moving the orchid works. It blocks my wind threat. It's just you're going to be giving up your rose, which is annoying, but I think you kind of have to give up your rose here. Well, no, you can't even block with the white 5. Yeah, that's pretty rough. I guess maybe the move would be to move your red 3 up to block instead, so that way you get your red 3 out of the range of my orchid, and you can maybe start going for some win threat ideas up there. You'd have to like class trap your red 3 though, and it just looks not good. So yeah, maybe that's the best option, blocking with the red 3 from what I can see right now. Yeah, it's just kind of a rough position. But anyway, yeah, I just wanted to put that in here because I missed that completely, so I do apologize. Next time, if I do like another recap, because I might have to do one of these for my Arc Prefect game, I might as well just make it a review at this point. I should just make it a review, so I think that's what I'm going to do, because I was trying to do this weird middle ground thing with this video where I was just trying to go through it quickly and do a recap and not a review. I don't know why I wanted to do it like a separate thing. I'm just going to do the next one as a review, so that I'm actually like going in depth and seeing these things. But yeah, I apologize for that, but next time I'm not going to be doing any more of these recap videos. This was kind of a weird idea, but I'm glad I tried it out because now I know. So anyway, yeah, continuing with the rest of the video now. Bye bye. I think this is a very good move with capturing the red 3 because it's a free tile, can't capture, freeze my red 3. So yeah, this move with the red 3 was probably a decently sized mistake. And then I'm able to form a different kind of threat here. And, you know, using accent tile when you didn't have to is probably not the best. But yeah, I think they played very well, despite the mistakes. So yeah, just a quick little recap. I don't think there's really anything else to talk about in this game. Great game, well played by Kokoro. It was a lot of fun to play. And yeah, that was my game against Kokoro in Garden Gate League. For round 1, I have one more game against Arc Prefect, and that will be it for round 1 for me. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to do that one live, but like I did with this one, if I can't play it live, I will be doing a recap of it. So yeah, look forward to that. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and yeah, thanks for watching. Bye bye.